Ben asked me, who's right there behind the camera, just to share where we're going in our study of the book of Acts. And I guess in many regards, in all regards really, it's where the book itself goes and we follow it. So as you study the book of Acts, from here on out, really starting with chapter 16, which is where we find ourselves right now, through chapter 28, I mean the main focus is on the journey of Paul from places like Antioch and the churches in Galatia to Rome, which is where the book ends. So we go from this travel where the epicenter has been Jerusalem, which is the center of Judaism and it's the birthplace of Christianity, to now going to Rome, which is the epicenter of everything political and powerful from a worldly standpoint. And what we're going to see is Paul on this journey, and he's going to have some great stops in places like Berea and Corinth and Ephesus and such. But he also has face time with political leadership. Individuals like Agrippa and Felix, and obviously appealing to Caesar. So you have this aspect of the kingdom invading even the political landscape, and how even those, he has great conversations where he tries to bring those who are in political leadership of the day to Jesus. And so you even have the impact of the gospel on the political scheme and of the day, and that's a big part of it. Again, Paul's life is difficult. We're going to see again, we're going to see everything from the highlights of the miraculous in his life to beatings, imprisonments, and the like. But it's this, I think this journey, big picture, as you stand back and you gaze at the book of Acts from 30,000 feet, it is a journey of again, Jerusalem and Peter's leadership to Rome and Paul. And again, the gospel impacting Gentile situations in dramatic ways. And we're also going to see another aspect of just what's a good way of putting it? The involvement of community. You have that very tearful chapter 20 scene where he's leaving Ephesus, he's leaving the elders, they are weeping because he has said that he won't see them again. We're going to see the community on the way, those individuals that really don't want him going forward. And yet the submission, and yet the sense of, no, I'm called to this. So you see community really impacting. You have this kind of strange end to the book, because it ends with not really a finality. It sort of ends open-ended, I think suggesting the story is getting written, which leads to ministries like, obviously why Acts 29 calls himself Acts 29 is because the story of the church is still being written, so there's that aspect. Boy, what else? It's flight stuff. It's, if you take the time to read in one sitting, chapter 16 to 28, it's fast-paced. It's movement. It's this. I've got to spread the message more. In the midst of, again, suffering and also the miraculous. Let me just make sure that there's anything I don't miss in this. You got the testimonies of Paul, 2 testimonies of Paul that obviously Luke takes the time to write, which I think is significant. It shouldn't be missed. You have the great dramatic conversion story of Paul, which I think is an important aspect, in the midst of this. But again, it's really politically, themed. Again, before some big movers and shakers. You have the storm scene in chapter 27 as Paul sails toward Rome, arriving in Rome. It ends in Rome. And just even how the book ends in chapter 28, verse 28, where it says, "Therefore let it be known to you that this salvation of God has been sent to the Gentiles. They will listen." So it's sort of, I think, purposeful in that ending, and Paul stayed there. But Paul didn't even want to end in Rome. Paul wanted to go from there and take the gospel message forward. So that's kind of this, how do you write music to that? I don't know. It's up to you. you're the experts of that. But that's the big picture theme of where we're going. We're going to see a lot of that. We're going to start hitting bigger hunks of text too, to try to help in that sort of, hey, we're moving aspect. So I hope that's helpful. I don't know if it is, but I hope it is.
That's great. Thanks.
Yeah, you bet.